Hey, everybody, and welcome to Early Stage Product. I'm Marvin, and I'm a product manager who spent the better half of the last decade working in product management full time at early stage companies. I've also consulted for early stage companies, and I've even tried to start my own. So that's where I come from. Before I get started with the video, I want to take a second to tell you about my motivation or my thoughts behind starting this channel, being that this is the very first video of what's to come. So every month I get at least 3 or 4 DMs, mostly on LinkedIn, from a lot of school students, but also a lot of undergraduate students who want to get into product management, asking me how they can break into product management at the FANG companies. FANG is, for those who don't know, it's Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. Supposedly the golden children of the tech world. But Facebook isn't really Facebook, it's Meta. So shouldn't it be Mang? Let me know. So a lot of times when I hear this, of course, I try to tell them about some personal experiences and some anecdotes of how they can get into product management. But this got me thinking about how much material there is on the internet about these large, big tech companies that kind of rule the tech industry. But there's very little information about early stage companies or the stories behind these products that are now billion-dollar products. So every time I get a DM asking me about joining Zomato or how they can join the next big Indian startup, Udan, Dream 11, all I ask them to do is look at an early stage company. And the more I thought about it, the more I understand that if you are starting your product management journey, I would advise you to skip the larger billion-dollar unicorn companies and instead think about joining an early stage company. I'm going to talk about 5 points why I think this will really help you, not just in the beginning of your career, but for the rest of your product career if you choose to stay in product. So all I'd say before starting is this is my attempt, or this channel is my attempt to sort of shine a light on the underdogs or the people working really hard behind the scenes before the large companies we know and love become unicorns. So if unifolds, is that a word? Unifolds. So this is my attempt at being a platform for all of the hardworking product managers who do so much more with so little and who always have to innovate 10x just to stay afloat. That's right. I said 10x so early in the video. All right, so let's dive straight into it. So, point number one, something that I think is the most important skill for any product manager, big tech, early startup, mid stage startup, high agency. High agency, in a nutshell, is the ability to take on any problem, small or big, and solve it. Not just let things pass by which are mediocre, or do not turn a blind eye to something just because it's not your direct function. So this is essentially what separates the mediocre product managers from the really good product managers, because your job as a product manager is to take problems, identify problems, and solve them in the best possible approach. So this is a great skill, and I think this is a muscle that you can really exercise at an early stage startup, just because there are so many opportunities for exercising high agency in an early stage startup, because a lot of the job functions, be it even something as diverse as HR and finance, are some things that will come under your purview at some point of time, be it budget allocations for a project or you're hiring a particular team. All of these problems will and can come under your purview. Whereas if you work at a big tech company, they have individual departments or verticals that will handle it. So at the start of your career or at a young age, I would say if you develop this muscle, just like going to a gym, it would really help you as you progress through your career. Just because you can apply this muscle to every problem that you face, be it entrepreneurship, be it building the best product possible, or be it managing a large or a small team. So that's point number one. Point number two is, at an early stage company, you get an exposure to various different job roles. I think my first point was a perfect segue into this. And the reason why I think it's super important for everybody to get a wide exposure towards different job functions is that my observation is that the industry is sort of moving towards common titles. And what I mean by that is, just 5 or 6 years ago, there were separate titles for operations managers, project managers, program managers, and product managers, and even brand managers. But if you look at how the industry is heading, they're sort of confining all of these different job functions and roles, which need slightly different skill sets under the title of a product manager. So coming back to why this is so important at an early stage company is, all of these different job functions are usually carried out by one or two product managers, which means if you are an associate product manager or an APM at an early stage company, you will get to dip your toe into all of these different functions and find out what works for you and what you enjoy doing, and then double down on that and specialize on that. But starting off with a specialty, to me, it feels like you are going into something without knowing what could have been. So that's why getting exposure at the beginning of your career to all of these different job roles is super important. Number three, I'm going to drop 10x again, but I think this time it's warranted, because at an early stage startup, everything around you is 10x. Whether it's learning, whether it's experimenting on something, or even the iterative cycles of development is going to be much faster. And when you start your career in product management or anything else, I think the most important thing is to be like a sponge. You need to absorb and assimilate and extract as much information and experience as possible, because this is what separates the good product managers from the great product managers. So having to go through these iterative cycles much faster means that you gain a lot more experience in a much smaller time frame. So this is fantastic for anyone starting out their career, and also it puts you in this learning mindset. Name dropping again, but this learning mindset makes you understand that you can never stop learning, and you should keep improving. So that was number three. Number four is, you will never be a cog in a machine at an early stage startup, because every person on the team plays such an important role, and even the smallest correction or the smallest mistake could have a massive impact. So this is both a positive and a negative, but let's talk about positives, because you will never feel like you are redundant. Every single action has a massive reaction, and you will have the chance to drive impact and see your impact and how it impacts the entire business. So this will give you a complete understanding of everything that goes behind the running of a company, and it helps you really see things through and holistically. So it is great to have this validation when you start out in your career and not get used to just being another number or another cog in the machine, because that's what drives a lower motivation and a lower feeling of doing things in the best way possible. Now, number five, I'm going to cap it off with this one. And I love to tell people this because this is true. Promotions. So I'm going to say 10x again. So here we go. Learning is 10x, but so is growing, right? Promotions can be an inch or a mile depending completely on your performance, because unlike a very hierarchical model of moving one step at a time and moving from an associate to a partner to something else to something else, you can make a huge leap depending on how well you work. It's completely performance driven in most companies, and it's a very meritocratic environment, which you won't see in big tech or any big company for that matter. And that's just a matter of function, because large companies have very large teams, and without structure it becomes very difficult to maintain. This is not the case at an early stage company with a small team, where you can have one person doing multiple roles, and if this person is really pulling more weight compared to the rest of the team, you will be rewarded. So you can really grow very fast, and your titles can jump really quick, and so can your compensation and your ESOPs. But that's a story for a different video. So just to recap everything, I think you should join an early stage company at the beginning of your product management career, because it gives you the opportunity to exercise your high agency muscle, something that will be your best friend for the rest of your product management career and will give you a leg up. Number two is your cadence for learning is really quick, which means you can learn a lot in a short period of time and garner a lot of experience in a relatively short time frame. And number three is the meritocratic environment will really reward your performance, as opposed to being stuck with people who may not be performing at your level and seeing the same output or seeing the same benefits. So this is why you should consider joining an early stage startup. Give it a chance. Do not just look at the biggest unicorns. Look at unifolds. Thank you, and talk to you next time. Stay frosty.